I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we're going to react to a pretty decently sized yarn dyeing mistake I made way back in 2008, so a long time ago. And this is a case where when speckling on the countertop, I added way too much dye. And so we're going to react to what happened. The reason why I'm doing this reaction video is that this is something that has come up recently, and I was thinking about this video, and I really don't want to try to make this mistake on purpose again. The yarn in the end was beautiful, but I don't want to add too much dye and have to deal with those results. I'd rather watch myself do it genuinely, naively for the first time and see how we feel about it. So while I have your attention, subscribe and turn on notifications because I've been posting at least 2 videos a week for years and you don't want to miss any of the new ones. And so I guess let's jump in. One of the first things I did was go and search my channel for oops. I have a few different oops videos, but the one that I'm talking about is one that's going to bring us all the way back to 2008. And I don't think that this is my earliest speckling video. For sure it's not, but I didn't have a ton of experience with it yet. So let's see how this goes. Oh my gosh, remember when I did all my splash pages like that? All right, let's jump in. Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and tonight is not the 8th night of Hanukkah, and this is not the limited edition Hanukkah colorway. Oh, you guys, I didn't even do talking heads back then. I didn't put my face on camera. Although I thought it was, and that was my plan. However, with a little overconfidence and a little too much dye, I went a little too far. Let's take a look at this Hanukkah oops and enjoy this not the limited edition Hanukkah colorway. I am going to leave in a lot of my overconfidence so you can... Oh, I cannot wait to see overconfident past Rebecca. Watch me discover things in this video. Today, I am going to do something that is a big first for me. I am going to dye over a dozen skeins of yarn in one colorway at the same time. The text, the no I'm not. I suppose I've technically done this before with dip dyed broken violet, but this is still a big first because this is all at once. I think I spoke a lot slower back then. All right, I'm talking about the color inspiration. I'm going to skip through a bunch of this because the 3 dyes I can say are Peacock Blue, Fire Engine Red, and Brilliant Yellow from DHarma Trading Company. And I was inspired by melted wax. And so I wanted to use these primary colors and get some blending. And that was going to be fun. I think we can skip ahead. I want to see the dyeing. That's the part I want to react to. More yarn. Don't forget your personal safety equipment when... Oh, back before I had my deluxe rubber respirator mask. I believe I bought this N95 from DHarma. And the funniest thing for me about all of this right now is that this was again, 2018. So, yes. You are using any dry dye powders. All of the pots, pans, utensils I will be using in today's project are dedicated dye equipment. And I also used editing software back there that was a lot harder to deal with. Oh yeah, but give the video a like. Are things that I do not use for cooking. All right, we're ready to go. Now, because I skipped it, the yarn is Knit Picks Felici. It is 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. Whoa. That's a lot of powder. You guys, this is the first time I ever used DHarma acid dyes. Oh my gosh, have I not speckled before? I mean, I knew I speckled with jacquard acid dyes, but it was hard to pinch my fingers into those containers. So how did I do that? What speckling did I do before that? Did I just speckle with Kool-Aid? Oh my goodness. I'm losing it. I'm gonna go ahead and add add, that's a lot of powder. I don't think that's like 5 grams of dye or something. I don't know. I'm just guesstimating. That was a lot of dye. I need quite that much. Well, we'll see. I'm gonna add some. That's still so much dye. Oh my goodness. And the one thing I did that was great was transferring some of the dye into a cup was really handy, because then I'm not having to go back and forth into the main dye container. My fingers get damp. Things will be okay. Powder to these cups. That is a lot of dye. Each of these jars are 2 ounces. And for reference, the jacquard dyes that I started with back in the day are, oh goodness, the jacquard dyes are a 1/2 ounce. So back in the day, I'm really curious now what my oldest speckled video is. Here we go. I don't want to play the playlist. Oh my goodness, baby Rebecca. We are going on a huge tangent here. Okay, nope, we can close that. Okay, these are all speckles. Violet, food coloring, food coloring, food coloring, food coloring, tulip, tie-dye powder, more sprinkles. Okay, this is attempting to speckle yarn with acid dyes in a pan. Hand painting wool with dry acid dye powder. So it looks like I'm pressing the dye in. Okay, I don't seem to have something that came out before that. Oh gosh, Rebecca. Okay, let's watch me actually speckle now. Oh yeah, I probably took way too much, but that's okay. We are gonna go big. And this is why some people will take the powder directly from the jars, which you absolutely can do. I was just concerned, and I think rightly so, that if I mix between colors. So right off the bat, it looks like I'm adding a lot of stuff, but I can't tell how much powder I'm pinching. And one of the reasons why we're watching this is because I'm hoping to be able to say, there, that's where you can see that I messed up. I would just get it all over my hands. So this is a fairly heavy application. I'm hoping for some speckle. Oh, see, yeah, editing Rebecca got me. Yes, a very heavy application. Some big splotches. Oh my gosh. Did you see how much I just added there? I just grabbed a huge pinch and just went all over. I'm not even sprinkling salt on, I don't know. I'm sprinkling flour on a countertop to like cover it. You want to take a small pinch of dye, a small pinch, let the rest of it fall back into the container, and then slowly go over, slowly build it up, because you don't want big clumps. I wonder if I'll zoom in at one point. The colors can spread a bit, but when I removed this yarn from the pre-soak, I did squeeze out some of the water, but they're not like nearly dry or anything like that. I mean, looking at the yarn, I can tell that it's not that wet. It's damp is what I can tell. But I'm just adding so much dye. I think even when I mix dye with citric acid, where I would have less dye powder than I have in these cups, if I'm going heavy and ham on the yarn like this, it's not this heavy. Oh man. There is some dry powder around the counter, but don't you worry. I will take care of that. You know me, I don't like leaving any dye behind. I have a feeling oh yeah, there's a separate yarn mop video for me cleaning the counter, which we're not watching today. Might be going a little heavy on here. Yes, Rebecca, but hey, nice shot of me in my mask and safety glasses there. It's possible that we will end up with a fair amount of rinsing after, but I'm sort of okay with that. Now, I probably could have spread these out a little bit more. I'm trying to pay a little special attention to the very end parts because I don't want to end up with like a ton of spot with no color. Oh gosh, it's gonna be all not any no color basically. The thing with Felici is that it's a shorter skein, so there's more wraps total and it's denser. Not just the yarn itself, but the skein. It's a little bit denser because it's not wound as big. You can see I just went for this and did the yellow all over, all over, all over. And now I'm gonna go rinse off my hand. This is before the era of the yarn mop where I would have rinsed it onto some other yarn. I'm losing all my words. I'm curious. Dry it with a paper towel and then we'll go for the next color. All right, I think at this stage, well, I want to hear overconfident Rebecca. Otherwise, maybe we'll speed up for the next side. Let's do blue before we go for the red. I mean, I think my goal is that this is what I wanted the yarn to look like. And I don't think I appreciated that the colors would spread more when you add dye on. I mean, looking here, like I can see even from this far away, the clumps of powder on the surface. Oh my gosh. And so I have another picture I did recently of just speckles and then 5 minutes later. And the spread isn't huge, but the spread is present. And I don't think I accounted for that. I wonder if, that's almost side one. Oh goody, I do zoom in, but I don't think there's a good side by side, but anyway. So right now, this is looking really dark. Which means that because the yellow is so bright, I went heavier with it and I'm going a lot lighter with the blue right now. Yeah, it looks fine. I would say the blue is looking fine. The yellow was out of control. The blue so far looks okay, which makes me wonder if I'm going to overdo the blue because I'm like, oh, I could add more. I have never seen it before. Please tell me that you're going to look more blue and less navy. Oh, I use these colors all the time now. This is supposed to be peacock blue. We'll see as it gets a little wet. I'm like sitting here waiting like, okay, I'll just go ahead and like, as I said, if this color isn't right, then like we'll go for something else. Oh, I mean, this isn't that bad going this heavy, but if I was going to go this heavy with powder, I think I would want to do it in an immersion setup versus on the countertop. Because if you're adding this much powder on the countertop, there's not enough water in the yarn to dissolve it well. So even if, you know, the amount of dye we're adding on is totally appropriate, the dye powder is going to get a little bit wet and then just sort of sit on the surface. There's not enough liquid there to help it sink in and then bind to the yarn. And oh, I just made a sale. Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. But it'll probably take a little time for the dye to like sort of sink in. That is true. But this color is definitely feeling darker than what I was hoping for, but I was going off of the shade. This is why I swatch colors now, so that I have a feeling for how it'll look as a dry dye powder on yarn. And also, you know, speckle versus spread. It's so funny. Okay, I see it starting to sink in. It looks like a very, very nice blue. I forget if this is like, maybe there was a color on back order, but I think that this is the one that I picked to be like my primary blue. I don't use peacock and sapphire blue that often from DHarma. Between the two, one of them doesn't make a good stock solution, and I used that recently. The other one does fine. Can't remember which one's which. But I think that between those and say Jacquard's Brilliant Blue, I like Jacquard's Brilliant Blue. It's easy to work with. But it's definitely feeling very navy right now. That's why, well, if you can call 3 skeins small scale. This is why we're starting on a smaller scale and we will go up. I have a feeling this was my first ever Hanukkah special. Oh. Okay, as the yellow is going in, I do see brighter yellow flecks. And okay, I think that this will be a bright blue. I'm adding more? Just gotta take some time. So I'm looking, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of blue, but not too extreme. I'm going for another pass. Let the dyes sink in. I'm going for it. I did not let it sink in. You gotta let it sink in, Rebecca. Patches of the blue. All right, and now once again, I'm gonna go rinse my hands and dry them off. I'm definitely starting to see some blue hints, but I was so nervous about that blue, but oh my gosh, I wanna see what I'm doing with the red. We're spitting it up. Taking some time to sort of soak in. Okay, let's go for our red. So on one hand, you would expect your powders to look a bit darker than the final colors that they'll end up being, but this isn't entirely what I expected. But I have to remember, this is so much powder. This is the amount of powder. Wait. I gotta go back. Oh man. This isn't entirely what I had expected, but I have to remember, I hope that I add the colors heavy enough in some places. I mean, I went heavy with that yellow, so I hope that, I have no idea what our color penetration is going to be like. I could have spread this yarn out more. It's like, I hope I added enough. Oh my gosh. This is wild to me. This is wild. But I wanted to keep it a little pushed together because when I'm doing 10 at once after this, I won't be able to spread them out a ton, so. Oh man, I thought I was gonna do 10 of these on the counter all at once. I don't do that many on the counter all at once. Maybe I'll do 4. I suppose you could do more, but that's a lot of leaning and reaching. And too much leaning and reaching can cause back problems. Some special attention to the end cap. And conceivably, I'll end up wanting to move this more than once. Oh, what, Rebecca? That would be a lot. This is really pretty. It's feeling way more fall than what I was going for. I'm gonna need more red. Now, I don't have a good estimation of the volume that I had measured out. I didn't weigh it or anything like that. I don't usually weigh dye for speckles, but if you're nervous about adding too much dye, weigh out the powder. Then you know you won't use way too much. I surely hope I don't use all of that yellow. Okay. Oh my gosh. Definitely need more red down there. I mean, I think that this is, I should wash the hands first though. I think that this is gorgeous. This is stunning. It just feels much more like gold, maroon, and navy versus red, blue, and yellow. I thought that I would... That is so much dye. That's like the amount of dye I would measure out to make a stock solution that I would use on multiple projects. I'm going to be dealing a little more with 3 primary colors. And I have a feeling that the blue's going to look green because I went so heavy on that yellow. Let's add some more red, which is clumped in some areas. All right. Make sure we have some in these more intermediate zones. I mean, I see the yellow spreading in. So objectively, this isn't bad, but it should be an immersion dyeing project. It should be immersion dyeing, should be in a steam pan. I should be working it through with a spoon. We'd get great coverage, have a lot of color on the yarn, I think would be great. I think that this is just too much and the yarn is not wet enough. It's not wet enough. And so the dyes can't sink in. I'm very curious to see the zoom in. And I think that looks really, really cool. The blue I'm a little unsure and nervous about. Oh, you guys, instead of washing the dye off my hands in between as I'm switching colors, you know what I should have had some yarn to wipe my hands off. Is that me conceptualizing a yarn mop? I think we found the moment. Maybe I'll do that when I go for all 10. Oh shoot, I just went back into the red and that's not the color I wanted to do. I had someone ask me recently why, someone said, I thought you were an expert. Why are you doing, X, Y, or Z? And I'm not an expert. I am an adventurous sort of beginner. And when I try something out for the first time, I'm willing to do that on camera. So then you can decide if that might be something that you want to try yourself, or if maybe it's not your cup of tea and you would like to do something different when it comes to your own yarn. We already had a lot of dye on here. I'm adding more dye on everything. I'm just going in heavy. Less is more. Do a little bit of less, leave a lot of the original color there. Go steam set it, then add more color. If you want to be really heavy, then you could get a better feel for it. Oh my gosh. That is the approach. Wow, I think this is gorgeous. Again, not what I set out to do, but it is really, really pretty. I think that I'm gonna need to reserve some judgment for when, like once this is set. I'm gonna rinse it and see like, oh, if the colors feel brighter. Just like when we're doing stuff with tie-dye, the colors tend to look different when you add it to the yarn versus when you rinse it. So things might still be rather dry. But I'm now gonna let this go for, I'm gonna let this sit, I think, for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what our colors are doing. Let's see. Okay, this is the good close-up. The good close-up moment so I can get a sense. I can't tell. Okay, I would say up here, I can see that there's still some powder on the surface, which isn't that unusual, but it looks like right here. Yeah, actually I'm seeing lots of little bits of powder that's just on the surface still. And man, I think that the effect, I was dying for the effect that I wanted to see. Not considering what the dyes are gonna do on the yarn. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. Oh my goodness. Not my smartest moment. Okay.
It is dissolving, is looking less orange. And I am starting to see some parts that look like the primary blue. And the same with the red. So I have hope. I think
I was nervous that the colors were looking so dark. And in my voice, I can hear that like, oh, I don't think this is doing that inspiration I wanted.
What we've got here is still going to be really, really beautiful. I just clearly need to practice more with some of these colors to get a sense of how they feel when we dye yarn with them. Okay.
Oh, man. Okay, so we're at 1452. Let's compare that to here. This is before 10 minutes and after. Oh, I'm going to inspect. It's just so much dye.
Yeah, this might not go through too many layers. So
this is where the problem is. I think I thought that the dye didn't go through very far, so I need to add more.
Oh, we shall see. But now we are going to flip these over. And I'm going to try to spread this out. We might need to do a third flip.
Watch me pat the yarn. Oh, I can go back to normal speed for this part. As I flip, watch me pat it. When I speckle yarn, I don't like to pat or rub. That spreads the dye out a lot. I flip and then lightly lift and spread, but watch. You can see that in the flip process, we are spreading out some of our colors. I actually see a pretty nice green show up there. But part of the reason we're seeing some colors sort of like spread out and go through a bit. And look at how dirty my gloves are. Now my gloves didn't have, I don't think they had dye from me pinching it before I flipped, but because there's so much dye on the yarn, my gloves got so dirty picking it up.
Is that, ooh, I see some, look at my hands. Oh, that's so pretty.
No! Rebecca!
Really, really pretty. I'm pre-soaking some yarn to like help clean up after, but ooh, that is really, really pretty. All right.
And this is probably also back when I didn't realize that I don't have to soak the yarn for 30 minutes. I can soak it for less time.
Let's go for this. And hopefully that helped spread some colors throughout and gave us some nice like rainbow action going on.
Oh! I did speed it up. I was just going to say, let's speed this up. And I was going to tell Eddie, oh my God, so much powder. I was going to tell Rebecca to speed it up, but I'm just adding clumps and pinches. This isn't what you would do with garlic salt. This isn't what you would do with oregano. Like, you want to speckle like you're sprinkling on like spices or things. Not that you're dumping spices into a jar that's going to go into a stew. Like you're just layering on top because you don't want a bite that's going to be all like dusty, powdery. Don't eat dye. But I think hopefully I'm communicating what I mean. I don't think with my old software I could speed up more than 800% maybe, because I feel like this might be a long time lapse. This is so much dye. I hope I zoom in. Do I zoom in? No. Oh my God, but I flip. Oh. If I add dye, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going in for more. Okay, look at how heavy that is right there. I'm going in for more. I'm wanting the colors to feel balanced, and I went so heavy with the yellow, I want the others in there. Aww. Man, I was jamming to that song. Okay.
I think that this is pretty good. I do have some concerns about the edges. I also want to let this sink in a bit for, let's give it 10 minutes.
I have some concerns about the edges, but no concerns about me adding grams and grams and grams of dye on here.
Again, and then we'll come back.
I mean, it's beautiful. Am I going to add even more color? I'm like sneaking ahead.
Okay, it is a little bit moment of truth time. If I move this, we've got some wider areas, but some cool, let's flip it and see. Ooh, that looks so cool.
Look at the smear down there. You could tell, like sometimes there's dye on the counter because it sort of falls through. Sometimes there's dye on the counter because you added more dye to your yarn that can sink in.
Eek! Look at my counter! Okay, this is what we're gonna do. With some of these areas,
I mean, you could do this.
Seems like maybe there's not enough color.
Or smearing things.
Sort of patting it down on the counter and on itself.
I can hear the steamer basket like steaming in the background.
The areas that I particularly want to keep an eye out for are these edges. You don't want things to blend too much because it could start to go a little brown.
Okay. We're gonna skip ahead.
Okay, it's starting to look a little muddy. Hopefully the yarn won't look too muddy.
Whoa, I know I skipped a part, but I really went to town and spreading those out. This wasn't going to be speckles anymore, but I don't think I was going for speckles maybe. Maybe I was going for splotches. Should have been done immersion in a steam pan.
Okay, I'm going to take off one glove.
Oh,
that way I can bring over my steam pot. And then
Oh, that drag makes me so sad. I know I spread out the dye and patted it through, but look at I point to the screen. Look at those streak marks. Oof, don't love it.
I'm going to plop in 1, 2. Oh, you can't see. Trying to stay on the clean counter.
Those drag marks make me so sad. Now, there are things you can do and techniques where you're dragging and rubbing the yarn intentionally, and you can get gorgeous results, beautiful results. But if I'm trying to speckle yarn, which I was kind of trying to speckle, I wouldn't do that.
3, they're all in here, and I'm going to go start steaming this for I'm going to steam for 30 minutes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so that was just the pasta insert in my dedicated steam pot.
Oh, I'm not even using the steamer basket. I'm using the pasta insert. Why? I wonder if this was back in the day when I only had an 8-quart pot. Maybe I didn't also have the 12-quart version of my pot. And so the steamer basket of the 8-quart pot doesn't really fit 300 grams of yarn. Maybe it does, but it's more crowded. But I think because I was thinking about steam setting 10 skeins at once, that's why I'm using the pasta insert. Not a choice I would make now.
And I've got the yarn in there, and we're gonna let this go for 30 minutes. All right, turn off the stove. And here is...
Okay, it doesn't look that different.
Pretty yarn. Pull it out and whoa. Whoa.
Oh.
A bit wet. That's color right there.
Okay, I opened the lid and I'm like, I mean, it doesn't look that bad. I wonder how close I was to the water level as well.
I may have overdone it a bit with the dye. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, and there's definitely some dye behind in there. You can see
Look at that.
some yellow.
That's not what you want to see. If you are removing your yarn after steam setting it and it is dripping color, that is not a good sign. That is not what you want to see. You don't want that, and I would be concerned. And I would probably then want to do some kind of immersion dyeing technique, because if the dye is dissolving in the steam and dripping back down, that's not that good. Sometimes you might see a little bit of color, but it should not be bleeding as you remove it from the steamer basket, unless you use too much dye, like I did.
So, I might need to reevaluate this a little bit. We'll see how
You think? You think?
this is. But let's take
Same blue tongs.
a peek. Yeah, we've got a nice, oh, I don't think you can see, brown liquid.
Okay, the color in the liquid down there did not look too bad. If it was opaque, then that would mean there was a ton of dye. It just means that there's some color. It's not that bad, but the lifting it up and the color falling down is bad. I mean, sometimes some dripping of color, that happens. That's not a problem. But the water getting wet from the steam and then the dye just sort of pooling down to the bottom, that's not something I see very often. See why I don't want to redo this on purpose?
Down below. So, I mean, this definitely did not happen last time. Maybe I had too much water in the yarn.
No. You could have had too much water in the dye bath, not too much water in the yarn, too much dye.
For it to like all sort of like pool down at the bottom. But we've got some really, really cool layered action over there. So I'm gonna let the yarn cool and then we will go and rinse it.
Look at me being optimistic, Rebecca. I mean, I say this a lot. If you approach a dyeing project with an idea of like, I want to try this, what will I get if I do this? It's very easy to be excited by the results. If you're trying to do something very specific, then that can be harder to get very excited by it. I ended up changing gears with this colorway, but it's not what I expected, not what I wanted, but there's something intriguing about it. And I don't know, I'm enthusiastic, right?
And then figure out how we're gonna proceed. Okay.
I'm struggling with the angle. I think that I must have the camera on the floor versus on the counter.
I am going to take one of the three, just sort of plop her in.
You know what else? Was I not using zip ties at this point? Where did I learn about zip ties?
Yes, I decided that this yarn is a girl. And there we go. I'm surprised I didn't see the bleeding like immediately. I mean, I do really genuinely like this. It's just not what I was going for. So, this actually might be more balanced than I thought. It looked like the really dark section was just around one area, but
I'm laughing right now and cringing because a lot of times I'll get like the littlest hint of yellow bleeding and I'll be like, oh, I'm bleeding a little bit. Like the time to be concerned is when you see like a lot of color coming off the yarn. And you probably want to add soap to avoid backstaining or having that color dye your yarn.
There's an end. Whoa, look at the color change of the rinse water. At first it was yellow, now we've got orange. Next are we gonna see green?
No, Rebecca, when yellows get really concentrated, they are orange.
I think I used way too much dye.
There it is!
I went like big, like maybe I was doing tie-dye. I did not measure out any of the dye. When I did this in...
I mean, it's close to black. Like, it's a lot of color. A lot of color. And, you know, when I've done with the tulip dye kit, you can go big with the powder. A lot of the dye will rinse out. But the powder also is not straight dye pigment. There's like soda ash in there. And so, yeah, I overdid it.
I think it was Dyepot Weekly 70 something. I think it was Dyepot Weekly 77. I used a lot less color.
Oh, let's see. Okay, yeah. Oh, was that with tie-dye? I don't know if it was with, oh no, as a dye powder. I used a lot less dye. Okay, that video, yeah.
And I sort of wanted the colors to spread out a little bit more and get a little more.
Okay, but you looking at the water go in, you could just see the color just spreading from the yarn.
So I went heavier. The thing with going heavier is that, I mean, we've got something really, really dark, and I was hoping for something that was bright versus dark, if that makes sense. Now, there's still some really beautiful speckling in here.
We're definitely getting some backstaining. There were some areas that looked white that are now looking pinkish. That's because some of the colors bleeding out are striking to the yarn. My tap water is slightly acidic, and so that happens at my house.
And I think that this is lovely, but I think that I might be going with Plan B.
Oh, I'm skipping ahead. That is so much backstaining.
A fair amount of rinsing.
So much. I mean, beautiful. These colors are gorgeous, but it's just so much backstaining. Wait, and what am I going to say about this, the dye?
My yarn is now drying. I may have added a healthy splash of vinegar in, and that really did help stop the bleeding.
Good.
But I think one thing that I learned today is that overconfidence is something that every dyer needs to worry about. I've played around with acid dyes. I've started playing with acid dye powder, but I had not used these dyes, so I was neither familiar with their hue nor their potency.
And it's not that DHarma dyes are more potent than jacquard dyes. The jacquard dyes that I have, to this day, I have the 1/2 ounce jars versus a 2 ounce jar of DHarma. There's so much more dye in the container, and it's just like, ooh, I can throw all this on. 2 ounces of dye is how many grams? 56.7 grams. 2 ounces of dye, you could dye over 50 skeins of 1% depth of shade. And here I have 3 of them. So that's enough dye to dye, 150 skeins. Or probably more, because I'm not always at a 1% depth of shade, give or take. But still, it's a lot of color, and I don't think I had an appreciation for that yet.
And we ended up with way too much dye on our yarn. I could, and I will, I think at some point, try to recreate this type of yarn with these colors in the way that I was going for.
I've probably done that at some point.
But for now, and I pause because I'm considering giving this another shot right now.
I think one of the concerns is I didn't have that much of the felici, and did I have pre-orders for it that I needed to fulfill, so I didn't want to waste too much maybe. I mean, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Look at all that backstaining. We saw white when we took it out. We've got a pink there. This bled and bled and bled. And I was washing them one at a time. I wasn't even washing all 3 together. It is dark and moody. I'm muting just so that way we can see the finished yarn. This is beautiful with this intensity of color. I actually really like this effect, but I still don't want to do this again. If I wanted to do something this heavy, I would mix the dyes with citric acid powder so that way I could get them really heavy on the yarn and spread out. Maybe you would pat them in, but you'd have a little bit of control there, and I would be able to keep some of the brightness of the colors. And then if I wanted it to be a little more moody, I would over dye it with a color. So then the base started darker. I mean, it's really pretty. Really, really pretty, but definitely one of the biggest oopses that I've ever had. Part of my philosophy here on YouTube is that I take risks when it comes to dyeing yarn, so you don't have to. I will take those risks, try out different variables, see what happens, and then you can make the decisions of what you want to do based on the types of results I got. And a big part of that is showing things that don't turn out like I expect, that didn't work the way I anticipated, or maybe is something that I consider a little bit of an oops or a fail because of how much bleeding there was. And I think sharing this is important. I think showing the things that don't work are important. The most times I get frustrated is when I'm trying to do an example of something that works for a demo, especially if it's something I'm contracted to do. And then maybe I get a moment that is a good learning moment, which I love, but is not what I wanted to happen in that particular video. Then I can get frustrated. I'm human. I get frustrated sometimes, but I'm so glad to have this video here. I feel like I've grown so much as an artist, and I think that it's worth taking a look at some of these older videos with a grain of salt because I know so much more now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you so much for taking this trip down memory lane with me. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits. We have hundreds and hundreds of videos here. We're in the Dyepot Weekly 500s. There's got to be over 1,000 videos on the channel. And they're all different ways to play with color and yarn, and I'm not done yet. There's more I want to explore, more I want to learn. I'm learning more every day, and I think it's awesome. Subscribe, turn on notifications. Let me know in the comments if there's a video that you want to see me react to, or react in a way of, I wouldn't do it this way anymore. I would do something differently now. Not that I want to have reaction videos come out once a month or anywhere close to that, but maybe once or twice a year. It's something we can do. And I don't know, it's a nice trip back through memory lane. It is worth me mentioning though, that I try to keep track and make chapters for the videos, and I list conditions down in the video description. So if you ever miss me saying how much dye, if I measured it, or how much I used for the pre-soak, check the video description. I may have that all listed down there to help you out. But anyway, I'm going to head out and probably go dye some more yarn. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.